Well, our coverage of a very busy week with the Canadian men's and women's national teams continue, and very excited for our next guest to provide an insight that we quite frankly are craving right now as media and supporters of the match, and that is from the players themselves. And we have one of the most distinguished former Canadian men's internationals joining us now, Jimmy Brennan. Jimmy, when you're not sat shoulder to shoulder with me in the commentary booth, I'm sure this has been a very busy week for you, and a lot of people are after your time, your insight, and your experience here. So we appreciate you taking a few moments to join us and share some of that insight. Let's just start with what has these past few days been like for you? What are you feeling right now? And what have you sort of digested as we're still trying to learn the evolving news here?
Yeah, I think everybody's just trying to really figure out what's going on, and trying to get as much and gather as much information as we can. I mean, look, on our Footy Prime podcast, we've been talking about an awful lot. With Craig Forrest, and he's got a terrific insight of what's going on, speaking to quite a few individuals. But for me, I think the most disappointing thing is how this all evolved and came to fruition. In a country right now where we should be celebrating the success of our men's national team getting to a World Cup, how great our women have been over the last number of years. It's a black eye for our sport, and don't think that every hockey fan, baseball fan, basketball fan who has no interest in soccer and don't want to see this game grow are not loving this at the moment. I just wish that when the players put this forward in March, that the CSA and the men's team and the women's team all got together and try to hash this out as quick as possible. In the end, we end up having a game against Iran. Iran, obviously, there was a lot of controversy with that. That match gets canceled. Then the players end up striking. Then we fly in Panama for a game, and we don't end up playing against them. So it's been an absolute mess. And I hope that we can, and the players and the CSA, both men's and women's, can resolve this as quick as possible and move on. And like I said before, this should be a moment that we should be celebrating Canadian soccer. And focusing our attention on this World Cup.
One of the reasons why we assume, because we've only had the one statement and then the announcement that the team was going to train yesterday, that this happened now is because the players feel like this is their moment for the utmost leverage, where there's the most at stake, where they have the biggest chance of being heard. And I bring that up because I want to ask you about your experiences with these kinds of association and player negotiations. I don't recall any moment where your generation of men's national team players actually canceled a match so that they could get a deal done, because what your team had done successfully was, as you just mentioned, take care of this sort of business well in advance. But in terms of the actual conversations, whenever they happen, can you sort of pull the curtain back for us, Jimmy, and the supporters who might be wondering what are some of the things that might be negotiated, and how that process works with wages and actually playing the
Yeah,
match?
I mean, look, I don't know the full details of exactly what this group is looking for. We've had our issues with the CSA. I think every generation has over the last number of years, and there was a time too where we were about to strike. The president at the time, he flew in, he sat there, and we got a deal done relatively quick so that we could move forward and get on with the game. Um, and both parties weren't leaving until we came to an agreement. Um, and a lot of time, it's the financial side as well. Players want to get paid their worth. There's other things that can come into it, whether it be travel, accommodations. There's a number of things that current groups teams are always looking for at that current time. And obviously, with this group and the success that they've had, and getting to a World Cup, there's quite a few things that they need to fix in their agreement.
I I'm making sure that I'm not phrasing this in a way that you know what the players are doing. That's not what I'm asking. But in your experience with these negotiations, just to again shed some light, is this a situation where the group would find some legal representation, or there'd be an agent to speak for the group? Like, what's some of the
Yeah,
the actual
there's
details?
certain things that you can do. The one thing that you should do is get a lawyer to represent you. And then that way, what ends up happening is it takes a little bit of the pressure off for you. You can hand all your details and what you're looking for in that agreement to the lawyer, and then lawyer will obviously speak with another lawyer and try to hash things out. Um, it's always difficult when you tend to do things yourself because you do miss an awful lot. And that's why you get an expert in there to finalize and go through everything uh, in every single little detail. Um, but normally, what will end up happening is, as a group, you would sit there, you'd have the leaders of the group that would present and have a discussion with the players and say, "Look, at this is what I think we need. This is what we want. Are we voting on this?" Everybody votes and says, "Yes, I'm in agreement," and that's why you didn't end up playing the game because everybody's on the same page. And then what you do is those older players or the players that are representing the group, they're the ones that will handle the situation and deal with whoever they have to. In my time, I was a younger player on the team as well. We had a few older players that started putting things in place. Um, and like I said, we ended up having a vote, and that's when you start negotiating. It's not like every single player is going to be negotiating, right? There'll be a couple of players that will take the lead in this.
I want to get your perspective as well here from a coach in the Canadian Premier League who directly worked with Canada Soccer Business. What do you think their role and their importance has been in creating or at least encouraging, pushing the Canadian soccer economy forward?
Yeah, they're trying to push the game forward and create awareness and more interest for the game. And obviously, with the national team doing well, the CPL's growing as well. You start creating more interest, working together in collaboration to create more awareness, more sponsorships, more media. That's their goal. But I mean, look, I can't go into detail with it because I don't know enough about it myself. And that's for the business leaders that are involved with it. And look, it's just like what the players are asking for is transparency. They want to fully understand it, just like everybody else wants to understand exactly what's going on with the CSB, with Canadian soccer, um, and they're right to know. They truly want to understand exactly where the CSA is, where the books are, where the money's going. And they're talking about change, and I think they do need a few ex football players involved with the organization, because right now and over a number of years there's never been trust with the players in the CSA. And I think a lot of times, if you look, for instance, like an AC Milan, they've got ex players that are up in the board and presidents, and same with Bayern Munich. They got players that are quite high up within the organization. So right away, there's a connection between the player and the organization because there's that mutual respect. Um, and I think they need to really sit down and figure out, how do we mend this relationship between the players and the CSA? Do we bring some ex professionals in that can help? Um, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done behind the scenes in order, one, to finalize this agreement between the men and the women and CSA, and obviously mend the CSA and put it in the right direction where we do end up trusting the organization.
I want to get to the CSA in just a moment, but I think it's a great point that we need to be speaking more about is the impact and the experience that the former players can provide to the business, because everyone comes from a different perspective, and when those perspectives are shared and used in unison, it can be extremely helpful for the growth of the game. And obviously, Brittany Timko Baxter is doing a great job, but if it's probably, and I don't want to speak for her, a lot of weight to sort of be the sole voice on that board. So why
For
do you
sure.
think, if you can just sort of tell me, on now that you've been in the playing perspective, the coaching perspective, you've seen the media now too, what is it about the football player and the football player's experience that can add so much value to these negotiations or to these boards, and helping to steer the ship, because everyone's trying to steer it in a common goal? It just seems like it would be easier with more of that player's
Well,
perspective, no?
I mean, look, if you're making decisions for a game, but you've never had professional experience in the game, how do you make that decision? Now, not every footballer deserves to be on a board, or
Right.
is educated enough or has enough experience to be in those positions. Just like every board member doesn't have enough business experience to be in certain positions on a board, right? It's got to be the right people. But at the end of the day, with Canadian soccer and the CSB, you're selling a product. You're selling a product, and the product is football. And it's people that have played the game, that have been worked in organizations, who've gained a number of experience in professional sport, that need to be involved at some capacity within the CSA. And then what ends up happening is those football people that have been around the professional game for a very long time and understand it, understand how it works, they can sit down with a vision as well. Say, hey, listen, this is where I think this game needs to be going. This is the direction. The business leaders now sit behind and think, okay, well, how do we put this together now? How do we bring this vision to fruition? And what resources can we provide to make this all happen? So it's working in collaboration, having the football knowledge of people who understand the game, and having people who understand the business side of how to make something work. And if you don't have the two working together, then where's the trust? How do you get things done properly?
Fully agree. The statements we've seen, there's been one from the women's national team, there's been the two from the Canadian men's national team. The From the Canadian Soccer Association's perspective, we've seen their social media statements, but we also had a press conference with Earl Cochrane and Dr. Nick Bontis the day the news broke. And admittedly, it was put together very fast, but it was important for them to put a voice to it. What did you make of the press conference? Was it enough to just be there and to explain their position, or what were your takeaways from what you heard from Dr. Bontis and Mr. Cochran?
Yeah, look, I think they're right. They had to come out and they had to address the situation. Like I said before, it's a shame that it actually has come to this. I mean, me personally, that we shouldn't be in this situation. This should have been dealt with a long time ago, behind closed doors, not with the public. Um, but there were some interesting points that were made. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, those points that they've made and what the players are saying, nobody's really going to understand the truth until everybody gets around the table and everybody opens up their books and puts all their cards on the table.
From a national team performance perspective on the pitch now, at what point do we get concerned about preparation? We as the supporters, we as the media, and the players themselves having. You've already mentioned the canceled Iranian friendly, the canceled Panamanian friendly, and then just the lack of training time as a group. At what point do we get concerned about the players not using their very limited international windows and dates together?
Well, we're concerned now. We're concerned really against the teams that were meant to be playing for preparation with Iran, with Panama. This is you know has the preparation been great so far? No, not at all. And this affect the players? Absolutely. Is this preparation going to be perfect for us going into one of the biggest moments in Canadian history? No, it's not. It's not a good situation that we're going into. Um, and like I said, now you've got a match against Carousel coming up. This is one of this is one. Hopefully, the players end up playing, because if we don't, this could be you could be getting sanctioned by FIFA now and CONCACAF coming down hard on you. And we've seen this happen before, where they do sanction teams. I think it was Guatemala, where they ended up missing Gold Cups, the National League, Nations League, and we don't want that happen with the Canadian national team, especially where we are right now. We need to be playing games. We need to have the right preparation, and this is just becoming an absolute hindrance for the team.
Well, and look, there's no point sort of rubbing salt in the wounds, but I think it's worth noting that it's not just we're going to cancel the match and people who had tickets or book flights have to go home. When the sanctions come in, this World Cup prize pool that you're starting to get, let alone the 2026, like you don't want to be just wasting your money on lawsuits for canceled friendlies and on the financial side, that seems to be a big crux of the issue here. So it's as much as it's about preparation and just playing together, building that chemistry, as much as it's the business and the legalities off the field, isn't it?
No, it absolutely is. It absolutely is, and people are asking the questions as well, like who's at fault for this? Who's at fault for making these decisions and the cancellations of games and now lawsuits and money that's going to be just wasted. I think that these are the answers, the questions that people are asking, and there needs to be answers. And it's like I said before, it's such a frustrating point in Canadian football right now. We should be celebrating, but I get where the CSA is coming from as well. They're looking at their books, thinking, can we afford this? The players want to see their books to make sure that they're telling the truth, and it's like I said before, this is. It's really is a black eye on Canadian soccer right now, and hopefully they can all get together and sit behind the scenes and address this properly and be able to walk away from the table shaking hands and everybody on the same page. So I hope this gets done very, very quick. As we've got a big game coming up as well against Carousel that the players have to play. Otherwise, we could be in a hell of a lot of trouble.
Now that you've finished the coaching and the playing for now, you've joined the media world. You've already mentioned Footy
The
Prime,
playing
the
I'm
podcast.
done. The playing I'm done. That's not for now. That's finished.
Okay, just making sure we don't. Maybe I was just trying to stir little things out. This is the
Yeah,
media now, Jimmy. But
yeah.
how have you enjoyed becoming a member of the team on Footy Prime with Brennan Dunlop, James Sharman, Craig Forrest, Dan Wong, and just experiencing what it's like to be the storytellers, because you guys are clearly very good at it and the chemistry's there. And I'm not just trying to pump this podcast for the sake
Yeah.
of pumping this podcast, but if you are a football supporter and you haven't checked it out, I strongly recommend it. What has it been like for you to join the media world?
Yeah, it's been great. Look, I've known those guys for an awful long time, and it's an awful lot of fun. It's just like sitting there with your best friends or your brothers and just bantering and having great conversations and just talking shop, just talking football. You know that we do get quite serious at times, and then other times, you know, we know when to have the banter and have a good laugh. But it's been an awful lot of fun. It's amazing to see how Footy Prime has grown and the direction that it's heading right now. And you know, it's been a lot of fun to see the support that we've been getting as well, and just given that insight into Canadian football and the Premier League and football around the world, and just continually talking about the game that we absolutely love. So it's been really good, and obviously working with you guys at One Soccer, it's been enjoyable.
We're working on getting you and I a bit more room in that booth, so we're not knocking
It
knees
is very
too
tight.
much.
It is very tight.
But Jimmy, I'm appreciative of those moments that we get to do commentary together. I'm appreciative of your time here. Your perspective is invaluable, and just thanks for joining us. It's a hectic week, but we appreciate you carving out some time for us.
Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.